Hello, good morning, everybody. Good morning to you. We are live here this morning with Australia, coming to you from Australia. Just 2 weeks ago, we had America, and now we're calling from Australia. So big warm welcome to our special guest this week, Lindsey, who is MD of PACE Victoria, PACE New South Wales, 2 states in sunny Australia, although she's telling me this morning they're moving into winter. So it is a bit darker for her, 8 o'clock at night. So thank you so much, Lindsey, for joining us. Lindsey's going to be talking to us today about how she has been developing and growing her recruitment business. Now, just a bit of background on Lindsey. I'll let her introduce herself. Her business is targeted across logistics, supply chain, procurement, and manufacturing and operations in New South Wales and Victoria in Australia. Now, the reason that we wanted to bring the wonderful Lindsey on today is because, so like many entrepreneurs, when you begin to get serious about you want to grow your business, I think of it's a bit like somebody switches a spotlight on you and your business. And you find yourself becoming really aware of gaps that are between you and your dream, like where you want to take your business. And when you start to notice these things, what happens is you start to notice the things in your business that are preventing you from being able to grow. And what happens is that you'll also maybe realize that you're missing certain things. And when that happens, you reach this point. So you reach this point where you basically don't have an option. You can either close your eyes, bury your head in the sand, and then go to sleep at night with total awareness that you're not going to achieve your life's goals. And by the way, you need to be okay with that. Or you can take a different outcome and you can give yourself the greatest gift that you could ever give somebody. And that is the opportunity to realize a lifetime legacy. Now, the thing is, this can be uncomfortable because it means you've got to step out of your comfort zone. And as we like to say, you've got to put your big girl pants on and you've got to admit to yourself that you need to change the way you're doing things. And that, my friend, take guts. Because one of my favorite sayings is definition of insanity, Albert Einstein, do the same thing over and over again and expect a different set of results. And when we think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because if you want to achieve something that you've never achieved before, then you have to do something that you've never done before. And this is exactly what Lindsey was prepared to do and to be that change. And that is why we are so grateful and excited that Lindsey is here with us today to share her insights and to dish the secrets on exactly how she and her team have made these transformations possible. So I'm going to say no more. Lindsey, I'm going to introduce you. Well, in fact, you want to introduce yourself, first of all, where you're from, and then we'll dive into that secret sauce.
Absolutely. Thanks, Katie. So I live in Melbourne and I am the managing director, as Katie mentioned, of PACE in Victoria and also PACE in New South Wales. So I've just taken on that business. It's been a wild ride. I did not come from a recruitment background. And when I moved into my role, I was completely on my own doing a 360 role. So as Katie mentioned, when I found that awareness of wanting to grow my business, that's what led me to Nikki and Katie to give me the processes and procedures to go ahead and succeed. It's been amazing.
Excellent. Okay, fab. So tell our audience, tell us a bit about where you were 6 months ago.
Yeah, sure. So that was sort of in the height of COVID in Melbourne. We were stuck in a lockdown and I was honestly at rock bottom at this stage where I was just thinking, how am I going to get out of this? There needs to be a new way of going about finding new business, being more innovative, attracting exclusive candidates, and keeping them really engaged with PACE rather than competitor agencies. And Nikki had just managed to message me at the right time. And I was like, oh, do I go down this path or not? And I was looking at my business and thinking, well, what do I have to lose? I feel like I don't have the right processes. I feel like I don't have the right structure. I felt like I was a hamster running in a wheel. I didn't have that greater awareness of a plan and my why and where we needed to go. And so I thought, why not go down this path and go down this journey? Because I really needed those building blocks to leverage in order to get some sort of structure, streamline, to go forward with the vision that I knew I had, but I just needed the steps to work out.
Yeah, brilliant. And so for you, because that, that can be daunting, can't it? Because while we can know that, like you're saying, it goes back to, I've got that awareness, but actually to go outside of my comfort zone, because, a lot of people will probably be thinking, I want that.
Yeah.
But, what kind of sacrifice comes with that? What for you were what for you was holding you back, if you like?
From making that change? I think I just did not have the tools or knowledge on how to do that. So as I mentioned, I didn't come from a recruitment background, and I hadn't really seen how people did things innovatively or had really strong structured processes. But further to that, I've just lost my train of thought there. But
and so you didn't have the structures and things. And what was going through your head? Like, you wanted to do it, but what were the reservations? What were you worried about might happen?
I think I had felt that I had tried different things and they hadn't worked, and I was beaten down by that. And it was that constant feeling like, oh, what else is out there for me to try and really kick some goals with, because I keep feeling like I'm trying, but I'm not really getting anywhere with all of this. So I felt that I needed that external help to just shine a light on maybe a different approach or a different way or a better process in order to kick some goals.
Great. So tell us what happened for you from there. So I know you came and you started working with us. What areas did or what was the first step that you took when you started working with us that started to make that difference for you?
Absolutely. So the first step I took was starting to get some awareness of my name out there, and connecting with people on LinkedIn that were a valuable network to me. And second to that, then reaching out and engaging with those people either as candidates or prospective clients to understand what their pain points were. And that was something that, I would have those conversations, but I didn't really get as deep or involved with what those pain points were. So I couldn't get that buy-in from them sometimes. It was too high level. And once I was able to convert that, I could see successes, and it was building these long-term relationships that I'm still working with people now on repeat business. I was like, okay, this is actually working. But when it really struck home was when my consultant started taking that approach and it was working for them, and they'd turn around to me and say, why didn't we do this earlier? It's so easy. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think of it myself, but it does work. So that was the first step that we took. So the LinkedIn reach outs, having that awareness, following up with some sort of scripted business development that actually didn't feel scripted. It felt natural, and it felt like, you were actually building something really meaningful. But from that step onwards, I really looked at my team, and Katie and Nikki always preached 360 is dead. And this freaked me out massively, because 360 recruitment was all I knew. And I just thought, how's someone else going to fill my job when I've taken the client brief and I know what the client wants? And I've worked with them multiple times before. No one else can fill this. And I have this weird control and ownership of my desk or my roles or my clients. But I bit the bullet and moved to away from the 360-degree model to a 120 and 240. And that has changed my business probably most significantly. And I was speaking to Katie before about some of the results that we had. So same team last quarter had started the Rocket program last quarter. Same team this quarter, different structure, no 360. And we've made 57% more billings than we did this time compared to now and last quarter, which is amazing.
Yes, well done, you guys. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, like, massive congratulations. Yeah. It's one thing, isn't it, to have that structure? It's another thing as well to implement it. So yeah, totally. You know, I mean, we like you say, we give people the scripts and we give people that process. You also then got to get on and like I said to you, it's about the implementation all the time. It's always about the implementation. And so walk us through that, because again, you know, a bit like you, I've changed my team in that model. Yeah. And there are steps, aren't there? You know, let's not, you know, yeah, totally. The outcome is you know, is phenomenal. And everyone, it is a route that everyone, you know, should go down. There are steps that take you there, aren't there? So what was like the first thing that you suddenly realized? I mean, what for you made you think, okay, yeah, I get it. The 360 totally makes sense why it doesn't work.
Absolutely. So there was huge feast and famine, not just with myself, but my consultants as well. We have quite a small environment, and you'd notice when someone was going through their famine month because they'd be really disheartened and grumpy. If someone was through their feast, they were over celebrating those wins. And so it was just up and down, and that champagne razor blades type phenomenon that recruitment unfortunately sometimes can be, but doesn't have to be. And so at the beginning, I actually said to one of my consultants, we're going to move away from 360. And I remember they were like, what? There's no way. And so what I did was slowly take myself out of it. And I wrote down the things that I value, the things that I was enjoying, that I was good at, that I was seeing results from. And I realized pretty quickly that I actually wasn't good at the 360, but I was really good at one segment of it. And after taking myself out of that equation and focusing more on business development and staff coaching and mentoring and account management, and stepping away from filling roles and handballing those to another consultant, implementing the processes and I guess capturing the protocol that other consultants need to take to fill those gaps, to fill those roles for you, I was like, oh, actually, I'm making more money than if I was just doing this myself. And so once I started doing that, my colleague who's been with me for quite some time was like, well, I'm sick of filling jobs too. And so I basically went through each consultant or each person in my team and said, what is it about your job that you love? What do you not? And I came about creating a delivery team and a development team, which are all recruitment consultants just focus either on BD and account management or delivery of candidates and candidate care. And they work hand in glove in order to make those placements. And that was all around just understanding what got them in flow, what got them motivated. And I can say for the last close to a month, we have been operating at this model at high consistency. We know exactly where we're at. We're focused. And at the end of every week, literally for the first time as well, my team is just like, we are kicking goals. I'm so excited to come back next week. I'm happy to stay back after work. And I don't encourage that at all. I want people to enjoy their lives outside of work, but people actually are just committed and they've got that buy-in because they love what they do now. And as a result of that's what's led to a 57% increase in our figures. It's not through anything fancy at all. It was just changing that model and getting buy-in. So when initially people were like, I'm not really sure about moving away from 360. And then I did that. And then I was kicking goals. They were like, oh. And then I explained, well, if we move away from this, we could actually build 5 times more revenue than if we just all do this individually. And it's, it has paid off. It's definitely got their attention.
And you're absolutely right, because there's a process that you can walk them through as well, isn't there? Which I know you did there, Lindsey, which is let's take evidence to them. Let's show them, because you're right. You've got to take your team on that journey because, people are, well, like you and me. I mean, I was a 360 biller and I can remember having those conversations about, right, we're going to change the business to 360. And while I kind of felt like split in two. While there was this half of me that kind of was like, yeah, I get it. I get the logic. I get the understanding, definition of insanity. We're just not moving anywhere. Desk costs are going up. Our revenue is not going up. We're going in the wrong direction. We're getting burnout. People are leaving, staff, all that kind of thing. Feast and famine months. You've got all of that happening. So this part of you totally understands it. Your cat's getting involved.
Yeah,
and then he's like, but I did it. I did it for 20 years, know, and why? Why can we not make this work? It's almost like if you're quite a resilient person and you're quite a determined person, you tend to want to hang on to that, don't you? And go, no, we're going to make this work, keep pushing through and we'll get there. Reality is, of course, you don't. So you're right. You've got to take that team on a journey, haven't you? Because there will be objections, concerns, fear about, oh, what does that mean for me? Is that going to affect my bonus? Is that going to affect, how happy I am? And like you're saying, then there's that quality element. How are the candidates going to feel about it? How are the clients going to feel about it? And so it is really important to take that on that journey. So what specifically did you do in that? Like what worked for you on taking that team on that journey? Was there anything that really made the difference for you, or for them, should I say?
I guess I had to prove it myself. So taking myself out of that 360 and being like, I'm not doing 360 anymore, but I'm going to start splitting fees. Are you all happy with that if you start working more roles and splitting fees with me? And they were all like, okay, sure. And I said, but go for it. Go get your own roles and you can get 100% of the fee, no problem. But I think you're going to be busy enough if I just focus on BD and do it for you. Now, one of my consultants has $132,000 sitting in his little kitty on the board. If he fills those roles, it's 132 grand that goes towards next quarter. Every single role is a role that I've referred on to him. He has not picked up one because he is too busy filling roles, and he is now sitting there like, yeah, okay, I get it. It works. So I would definitely suggest to other people, do it yourself and prove that it actually works and that you are just picking roles up. And I was picking up 6 roles a week initially, which has just been consistent, on top of obviously managing my staff, on top of looking after a marketing plan, on top of looking after the finances and dealing with my EA and, updating a system as well. Like it's actually been with ease. It's been with enjoyment. So first and foremost, proving it to myself. But I did give the analogy to my team, and if any ladies are out there that colour their hair or cut their hair and blow dry their hair, I actually liken it to a hairdresser. That if you go to a hairdresser and someone does your haircut, your hair colour, and you blow dry, and then they go, you're probably not going to stay with that same hairdressing salon. But if you go to a salon and someone colours your hair, they cut your hair and they blow dry your hair, it's all different person through each stage, they're going to come back to the business. And the way that I explained it to them was, if you go on annual leave and you don't want your client to go to another recruitment agency because they only know you, they buy from you, people buy from people, and they don't know anyone else in our business that they really trust, then you might lose that client out if they have a good experience advertising direct and finding someone themselves or going to another recruitment agency. This way you're 100% keeping that client in your account with Pace. And when I sort of said that, people were like, oh, okay, I get that. And we're rolling out the same processes between consultant to consultant that manages a slightly different discipline or a different position type, and they're referring business to each other. It kind of just all works in a symphony and harmony where the client has completely bought into Pace, and it strengthens that relationship that the individual consultant has. And I think for all my female consultants anyway who colour their hair, they were all like, oh, I get it.
But it's a very good analogy. And that's the other thing, isn't it? Like you're saying, sometimes it is about giving those stories as well, isn't it? And analogies for people so that they can see themselves. It's like that reflection of themselves in that it makes sense. But you're right. It's all about this evidence, isn't it? So whether that's data, whether that's stories, whether that's analogies, and leading from the front. And if that's not yourself, you can champion your champions in your business to do that as well, can't you? Like people in business as those individuals to sort of shine the light on how that process works. I know that really worked for me as well. So, okay. So 360, I know has been absolutely tremendous for you, hasn't it? That change, you getting in flow, the team getting in flow, and the systems and the structures. Talk to us a little bit more about that. Like, how have you found, because then I know you have a team, you manage people. What else you, going back to where you were, what else did you notice you had as a gap, let's say, or that you needed help with, that you've also made changes to?
Oh my gosh, it's so simple, but I just never did it. It was outsourcing. And looking at the time I spent on the stupidest things per week, and I know this is something, Katie, that you've put out in part of the homework that we do, where you look at the top 3 things that you do in your week, and that you love and how much time you spend on them, that you're really effective with, and the stuff that you hate doing, you procrastinate with, and how much time given in a week do you actually spend time on that? And that was so eye-opening for me. So whether it's been outsourcing through VAs or through technology in order to increase those business activities for the team. I can't never go back. And I always was afraid about costs. I was always like, oh, it's going to cost too much money. And it just pays off. It just does. And take this, if anyone's watching this, take this from someone who honestly, like, I was so tight with my wallet at work and really conservative and scared to spend. And now, like right now, I'm a completely different person. I'm just like spending left, right, and center. But that's not it. It's I think it's the fear of being like, okay, I'm going to invest in this. I need to make it work. I'm going to invest that this is going to work. I'm going to create clear processes. And it just ends up ticking along like cogs, so that now I'm free to do things that matter. Speak to clients, for example. I'm working less hours, first and foremost, so my work-life balance is massively increased. Secondly, I'm doing things that I love. And thirdly, I'm not spending that effort on the minute details. And no one should. You should be enjoying either your life and your work-life balance, or enjoying the company that you work for, that they're trying to build, and not getting stuck in the little itty-bitty day-to-day things like, growing your LinkedIn connections, for example.
Yeah. Or even, cleaning your own office, or I don't know,
100%, whatever it is.
And doing invoices and things like that, gosh, if that was left up to me.
I know.
But you're right. When you run a small business, you often you just find yourself in that position, don't you? Where you're like, oh my God, if I look at my job description, it's like I've got all these things that I do. I'm admin, I'm marketing, I'm a receptionist. Yeah, I feel like I'm a PA. I'm the salesperson. I'm a jack of all trades. And so what you're talking about there is exactly that, is getting clear on what's the value of you. And if you were operating 80% of the time in your real area where you can really add value, actually you can afford, like you're saying then, can't you, to outsource. What's the cat called?
Nina. Nina, she's a superstar. Yeah. What do you think she is anyway?
She wants to come on. So absolutely. These are the things, aren't they? It's understanding what your value is, and then understanding that actually, if you're producing at that level, then you can absolutely afford to bring people in that could be doing the jobs that you don't love, that they do love, and that they're absolutely excel at. Because I don't know about you, but I find if I'm doing something where I'm out of flow, it could take me 10 times longer. It's 100%. Draining.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I just, you just procrastinate as well.
Yes, no one wants that, do they? So, okay, so outsourcing, we've talked about 360, we've talked about, tell us a bit about the structures and the processes. I know you also talked about the reach outs and the business development. Tell us a bit about some of the structures and processes you put in place then within the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to me being a 360 consultant and being like, oh, I can't have anyone else fill my jobs with my clients. I think I came onto the call very early on with you guys, and you were like, no, but you just have to package your processes and outlay them to the rest of your staff. And I was like, oh, it sounds quite simple, really. And so what I did was an activity inventory around what I would do in order to fill certain roles for certain clients, and make that completely transparent and have that available to my consultants that they then used. And then what I did was I was like, actually, that's really good. We should all be doing that across every single job order, across when we either take a job description, it's completely unified as one whole document that can be rolled out to whoever and has really valuable information, or whether it's candidate notes that we then send across with a CV send out, for example, having that all defined and written down. So those two have been game changing, because again, that helps with the buy-in for pace and the level of professionalism and consistency you'll get across a multitude of consultants. What other processes have we put in? Oh, this is a big one. So a KPI scorecard for consultants. I have always, I think because I used to work just by myself and for myself for such a long period of time, and then I'd have an administrator under me, I was really motivated in what I had to do. I just knew what I had to do. And I'd look at my profit and loss and I'd either see it was positive or negative. And I'd wanted it to be positive, and I just looked at that. And I never really looked into KPIs. But obviously, as you grow your team, you need to have expectations put out there. And I always felt KPIs were such a dirty word, and it's so wrong, because what you need to be able to measure things in order to see progress and traction and successes. And so I have managed to do that in a way that's not meaningless, just numbers, for example, but key ratios, and then slowly tracking that for consultants to be like, hey, your ratio is getting way better. That means this, and really understanding the meaning behind that. It's really helped me putting in process better KPIs. It's helped me understand how I can train and mentor specific individuals a lot better. So that's another one I would say has been massive. And it's not just, oh, how many BD calls did you do this week? Because that's dead. They are so much more meaningful than that, what you and Nikki provide on the course. And yeah, that rollout's been phenomenal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I know, people can relate to that, where I've been working for a business and I perhaps have been bashed over the head with, key KPIs before, and I just want to create an environment where we've got a different culture, and it's not all sort of carrot and stick and etc. I want to give people freedom, and you can still give people that freedom, can't you, even when you're using key success factors, when you use those as a real tool for driving motivation and performance. Because unless you know where you are, how do you know what you can do to change that result? So they can be so empowering, used in the right way. You're absolutely right. I know, even back in our business where we had ratios, I think for our consultants made the biggest difference, like you're saying, rather than activity level, because ratios show your quality, don't they? It's almost like that kudos of, oh, okay, now I get it. If I do this amount, I'm absolutely going to get that. It's like mathematically proven.
100%. Exactly. It's working smarter, not harder. And that's why I think what you guys put out there works so well, and people buy into it. They don't mind if they're doing it, because they're like, great, I'm way more efficient at my job. I feel better at doing my job. I'm not just banging out a number of meaningless KPIs.
Yeah, and there is something so lovely as a manager, I think, or we'll say manager, but when you're working, supporting people, when you're coaching people, to see them move and grow from that point of feeling as though the relationship between the manager and the person is directive. You need to go and do this, and this is going to get you a result, to actually that consultant owning and being accountable for their own delivery, and actually being the one saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do, or here's a solution around it, or I can see that my performance is at this level, and actually now I feel like I can really own that and run with that and set my own targets. I mean, that's such a big difference, isn't it? So, okay. So what other surprises have you had, would you say, in the last?
Well, I always thought that what we did was really niche and super specialized, but you and Nikki talk about this thing called avatar clients, or most placeable candidates. And I thought I knew exactly what that was. And then when I looked at my own database, I was like, oh God, I really don't implement this well enough. And so we did a full X-ray search with the clients that we deal with, and we looked at the level of fees that they gave us, or that level of engagement that they gave us. And we ended up having to go through she's being really naughty. We ended up going through a process of not quite like firing clients in a harsh way, but having to really back ourselves by saying to mostly clients, well, we're worth our fees and our values. And with candidates on the other side, we were collecting, even though certain resumes may have matched, we were speaking to candidates, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to place that person. We're collecting a graveyard of candidates that actually weren't that placeable. And I was like, why are we spending all this time screening, skilling, coding, all of these candidates we're not going to use? And so as I said, I thought we had this really well covered. And then I really realized how much time we were wasting either filling roles with clients that weren't paying us enough, or they didn't take us seriously, or on the other side of that, dealing with candidates that we could never place. And that completely streamlined things for me, to the point where now we we didn't used to reverse market anywhere near as much as we should have, as in like float a CV to a client anywhere near as much as we should have done that. And I think that it comes from, we were just probably interviewing way too many candidates that weren't necessarily always placeable. And now it is legitimately a weekly thing where everyone looks and says, okay, great, I've actually got these amazing key candidates. When we reverse market, we've had so much more success in filling, but not just that. We're able to use the same network of candidates time and time again. And yes, I know this sounds really simple, and I think there'd probably be a lot of other people out there that are like, yeah, I get that. I know that. I do that. And I thought that about myself as well. And now I just think that we're so much more streamlined with it. We're working with a tighter group of clients, a tighter group of candidates. We're seeing more successes. We're not walking away exhausted after having to interview countless people and being let down that they weren't the quality that we were looking for, because we're really investing in developing in the relationships that actually are most placeable candidates, and those avatar clients that are the ones that we really, really want to work with.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying, because I would agree with that, in the fact that, sometimes we can think, and I hear this, I talk to people, and sometimes people will say, yes, marketing candidates, we do that, we absolutely do that. And then when they actually look at the amount of time that they're spending as a business marketing those candidates, and what actual return do you get? Like, what are your ratios? So for every candidate marketed, how many of those are you placing? Because sometimes, and I think this is sometimes unknown to the business owner or the leader, is that their team will be marketing candidates that are not the right quality.
Yeah.
Because they'll think that that is the most placeable candidate, or maybe they, like you were saying, they've got that metric that they think, okay, I need to make sure that I do X amount this week. And what happens is either who they're sending out isn't right, or how they're sending them out isn't right, or even the message that they're taking to the market, like the way in which they're presenting that candidate to the client, is just not going to get traction.
Yeah.
And it's quite a dangerous thing, because while it is, like you're saying, a really, really powerful tool, if you get it wrong, it can really, really give you a bad brand very quickly.
Yeah, you lose credibility like that if you're putting out the wrong people. And it's funny, because I look back at 2 years ago when I had another consultant who's no longer with me. And, I think about some of the people that, because we were activities-based metrics at that point in time, and she was just flicking out anyone that was, good, but not mind-blowing. And then I compare it to last Friday. We reverse marketed out a candidate to a client that we knew would love him, that was growing, and this candidate exhibited all the behaviors, motivation, a skill set, experience that this client would usually go for. And they turned around and said, yes, we'd love to interview him, but if you've got other candidates like him on board, we've got 4 other roles. Would you like to recruit for 4 other positions for us? And that was all through, and that was like a freak occurrence, because usually you'd just be happy if they'd interview your candidate. However, on this occasion, because the quality of that candidate was so high and we so perfectly matched it for that particular business, we were lucky enough to draw 4 roles from that. So that was an amazing exercise.
And that's great. And that's the sort of thing that you want to be capturing, isn't it? And then recording, because it's like exactly that, ratios for this. So how many of the candidates marketed do we get an interview for? How many of those candidates do we actually place? That's the absolute gold one. And then, like you're saying, how many of those candidates do we get jobs on for? And these are the sorts of things that you can be looking out for. And then, because what that tells you is, when you know that you've got that right, you can actually then use that success. You can go back on the history to say, okay, so like you're saying, how do we then file down? How do we then filter down to get that avatar or that most placeable candidate profile even tighter? So that every time we market that candidate out, we're going to get one of those 3 things. And this is what I think, this is what you're talking about, isn't it? This is the difference that makes the difference when it comes to working smarter, getting higher results, getting a 57% increase in revenue, because you are doing the things, but you're doing them with such precision and exactly in the right way.
Totally. It's a level of detail that you guys have shown me to go into that I lacked before. That has been eye-opening, and that has literally led me to restructure everything. And the thing is, for anyone who's watching that watching this, it isn't sure how long it's going to take for this to work. It's instantaneous. Once you get your head around it and once you get your team buy-in, it is instantaneous. And because of that, because the results speak for themselves and your team can see that, all of a sudden everyone's like, well, I want what you just did. So, on the back of that, everyone else is like, great, I'm really motivated to reverse market my best candidate for the week, just even if it's just one, in the hope that I'm actually going to be able to get a really decent placement out of that. And that's what's motivating to other people to watch within your business.
Yeah, you're right, because it's contagious, isn't it? That's the beautiful part about it. Once you've got one little thing starting to turn, everybody's like, yeah, I'm on this now. I want to come with you on that journey. And we all do that, don't we? When we build a business, it's not about one person. It has to become about how you can cascade what it is that you do brilliantly, and your processes and structures. It's like, how do you model that out and then get 3 people doing it, 5 people doing it, 10 people doing it, however you want to build your business. But that's the key to actually growing your business, isn't it? Versus, I can sit here on my own and I could build 250 grand plus, and have a nice lifestyle out of it. But actually, if you've got that appetite for growing a business, then you absolutely have to have those structures, don't you? I think that was one of the biggest things I learned. It is. And once you get your head in that mode, everything shifts for you, doesn't it?
Totally.
So, what else do you continue to do for you to stay, or how do you continue to learn in order for you to stay on top of things in your role and your business?
How do I continue to learn?
Yeah. What do you do to continue to learn or develop yourself to stay on top of things? Like, what are you doing that's...
Oh gosh, I've had to learn how to prioritize my day a lot better and take that time out for myself. Take that morning activity or take ownership of my mornings really before I set into the day, and then look at my key tasks, look at my key priorities, look at my key metrics. But in terms of how I continue to learn, I think it's just really being more in tune with what outcomes I need to achieve and what actions and activities I need to undertake, and having that awareness, I think, through what the program shows me. I'm basically just learning from a lot of our past mistakes, to be totally honest with you, and overhauling them and using them as examples. Again, that evidence-based back to the team to say, hey, remember that time when we were really frustrated because XYZ was happening? What if we just tweak that slightly and do it a different way? Because I've tried it and I'm getting a different outcome. Why don't we roll this out? Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Because I think that's so refreshing. So many people tend to feel as though, the failures are things they don't want to talk about. And actually, that's a bad thing. But it's not, because, if you want to double your success rate and then triple your failure rate, that's the reality, isn't it? Actually, that's how we learn. And that's how we move things forward. And you're right to use that as evidence. That's really useful for your team then to take that from. And again, because we've got to have a starting point, haven't we? So, you have to have that to understand that didn't work. Yeah, and then what do we want to change on that to make it work? So fabulous. Well, Lindsey, I'm conscious of your time because this is your evening as well. And I know you want your bubble bath. So any other parting, words, shots, advice to people out there? So imagine, other recruitment business owners who are watching this at home from their office, wherever they are, and they are having those feast and famine months. They've, their position was where you were, only a few months ago. What's your big piece of advice to them?
God, okay. Well, firstly, if you are stuck in that position where you feel like you're just trapped in that hamster wheel of the same thing happening week on week, that you can get out of that trap. You absolutely can. There are proven methods to do it. So if you feel like it's just the same, you just shoving shit up a hill, I'm sorry to use the analogy, but if that's what you feel like you're doing, there is a way to get out of it 100%. And it absolutely does come up in your processes. You will absolutely feel uncomfortable at first, but that's the only way that you grow. And I know that everyone says that, but truly, without sounding a bit lame, but that is how you grow and just go up from there. Katie and Nikki, you guys have just been amazing in shining a light on how to do it. And that support group, if anyone is thinking about joining the Rocket program, that support group in the Q&A and hearing maybe other people ask that question that even you thought was a dumb question, that someone else has got the guts and that confidence to ask it. It's not a dumb question at all. It's actually just amazing just knowing that there are other people out there going through what you're going through as well. And there's always a solution forward. Definitely, yeah, surround yourself with a network. That is a huge piece of my advice to you. So especially with you guys in the UK, if most people are in the UK, and I can imagine it's a bit lonely with COVID and it's been a tough time for you, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for all of us, I think COVID's proven that, and that doubled with where you want to take your business, because when you run a business, you're on your own. It is really lonely, isn't it? Let's be frank. It is. You've got no one to bounce ideas off. You've got no one to actually look at your business bird's eye view and give you another viewpoint on it. And you're wood for the trees. You can't actually see. I mean, this is what I used to find. I couldn't see necessarily. It was like I was so stuck in the problem, I couldn't see what a solution could be. So it helps when you've got other people masterminding, brainstorming, and the people in the community are so fantastic. It's
so supportive, and seeing other people shift their mindset. For me, for example, who maybe took a little bit longer to sort of settle myself into the course and understand the way out of my mess, seeing other people do that and seeing the weekly accountability that everyone posts that we can all have access to and how their mindset changes, like that's really infectious. And so I would then see the goals that everyone else is kicking. And I'm like, oh, I want a piece of that. And I've been given the tools to have that too. So it is really motivating that, that you're going through that journey with others and that your mindset can change based on the back of other successes. And then just finding the ways that you get in flow and you're the best person you can be at work, doing the activities you love doing, that is life-changing in itself.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much. I have so enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that everyone watching has too. And the key thing that Lindsey and I were very aware that we wanted to give you at the end of this is that you guys can walk away believing and knowing this is available to you. It is absolutely available to you. It's not about your intelligence. It's not about your skill. It is there and available to you. It's just whether you're ready to take that step right now. And if you are, and you want to know how you can get the same results as Lindsey and our other heroes, if you want to know how to accelerate your business, then just reach out to us. We are here to support you whenever you are ready. So just know that somebody is here for you. And please take something away from this conversation. If you've listened to this interview, you've invested that time to listen, ask yourself, what is the one thing that I'm going to implement in my business? And what is the first step that I'm going to take to implement that? And that is it for us this week. So Lindsey, thank you so much again. Thank you very much for watching us, guys. We will see you very soon. Take care. Have a great
day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Katie.
There we go.